Welcome to Hopeful Moments 1. Today, we're going to hear a story about an arrogant boss and a remarkably patient employee. This story will make you rethink the times you were underestimated at work. Today's story is about a boss named Karen, who dared to challenge an employee she believed was replaceable. But as you'll see, sometimes, underestimating others can cost you dearly. Today's story will take you through an unexpected turn of events, when this employee decided to follow Karen's behavior, leading to an unforeseen revenge. And you won't believe what happens next. Get ready for a highly satisfying compliance in their own way. If you find this story interesting and full of valuable lessons, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more meaningful lessons. I worked for a relatively large family-owned company, where everything was run in a very unique style, marked by the close-knit bonds of family members. One day, the company decided to promote a manager from another department to take on the important role of overseeing a key branch that had a major impact on the company's business operations. This was a significant decision, and of course, he would face many challenges ahead. Before officially taking on his new role, he was warned about a particular employee in his department. She was not someone easy to overlook and was known for causing awkward situations in the workplace. She was notorious for frequently stirring up debates and conflicts with colleagues. Every time she attended a meeting or engaged in a work conversation, the atmosphere became tense. This employee, whom I will refer to as Karen, was seen as a trouble spot in the company, making many colleagues hesitant to work with her. With his new position, this manager was warned about Karen's personality and working style. However, this did not stop him from stepping into the role with determination, hoping to solve the issues effectively. But as you will see, even though he was warned, the challenges he faced were bigger than he imagined. Karen worked in the inside sales department, a role requiring quick thinking and excellent communication skills to maintain relationships with clients and coworkers. However, instead of focusing on her professional duties, Karen became well known for her very particular attention-seeking behaviors. She was famous in the company as a notorious gossip. Everyone knew her because Karen was always ready to spread rumors, whether true or not, at such a fast pace that stories in the company became constant topics of conversation. Her lack of discernment between right and wrong when sharing information made everyone feel like they couldn't trust what she said, and as a result, she built a not-so-positive reputation among her colleagues. However, what made Karen an especially irritating figure wasn't just her spreading of inaccurate information, but also the way she interacted with her colleagues, particularly the younger men in the company. Her flirtatious behavior was considered quite rude and tactless. Many of her male coworkers often felt uneasy and uncomfortable when working with Karen, especially due to the comments she made about their appearances, particularly how their clothes fit. While this attitude might have seemed like a compliment, it actually created a forced and inappropriate atmosphere in the office, where professionalism and mutual respect were expected. At times, Karen didn't just stop at comments about looks, she went even further, making blunt suggestions for lunch dates. These offers were not subtle at all, often coming across as very forward, leaving many people feeling awkward and unsure of how to politely decline without upsetting her. Despite this, Karen saw her behavior as harmless and perfectly normal, which only made everyone around her feel more uncomfortable. In terms of work performance, although Karen wasn't a complete failure, her work was only average and unremarkable. She wasn't a bad employee, but she wasn't a standout star either. Her presence, with unprofessional behavior and a tense attitude in the workplace, made the work environment less inviting. Other employees began to feel unhappy working in the same space as her, and many even tried to avoid her whenever possible. Karen was not only a difficult colleague because of her actions outside of work, but she also became infamous for a very specific tactic she would use whenever she wanted a raise. Annually, Karen would resort to an old trick she had mastered, threatening to quit. While it may seem like a definitive decision, in reality, this was just a ploy she used to pressure her manager into considering a salary increase. Whenever she felt dissatisfied with her pay or wanted better working conditions, Karen would create the same old scenario, threatening to leave the company unless she received a raise. What's interesting is that, although Karen's tactic wasn't new, her manager could never completely ignore her. She knew well that the company needed to maintain relationships with the clients she had built and nurtured over time. Therefore, in negotiations, Karen wouldn't just ask for a salary adjustment but would also subtly remind her manager that she was a valuable asset in maintaining relationships with the company's long-term clients. Given Karen's influence with an important group of customers, the manager felt he couldn't easily dismiss her demands. Each year, whenever Karen threatened to quit, she would receive some form of concession from her previous manager, creating what seemed like an unspoken agreement. These concessions might have been a small raise or sometimes adjustments to her work conditions to soothe her discontent. It was a temporary fix to the problem, without having to deal with the potential loss of an employee and the customers that came with her. Even though these concessions were only short-term solutions, they created a vicious cycle. Karen would have a reason to demand a raise the next year, and the manager would face the situation again. However, the manager's continuous compromise with her only made Karen feel empowered to manipulate the situation. She began to view her threat of quitting as an effective bargaining tool, and from that point on, she became more confident in requesting changes she deemed necessary. She no longer worried about the possibility of losing her job, but only cared about what the company would do to keep her, especially in the context of her long-established relationships with important clients. However, this behavior not only strained the relationship between Karen and the manager, but it also caused dissatisfaction among her colleagues. When they saw that Karen could easily threaten to quit and receive such special treatment, many began to feel the unfairness in how the company treated its employees. This further created a tense and unequal atmosphere at work, where one employee could take advantage of the situation to benefit herself without facing any consequences. When the new manager took over his position at the company, he had heard the stories about Karen, a notorious employee known for her disruptive tactics and unpleasant behavior at work. However, he maintained an optimistic attitude and was determined to reform the branch with the hope of improving performance and the work environment. The information about Karen didn't stop at just warnings from colleagues. It coincided with a concerning fact: the company's revenue, though only slightly down, saw a significant decline in Karen's sales, which was starting to directly affect the branch's goals. The new manager quickly realized that Karen's drop in revenue wasn't a temporary phenomenon but a result of factors that could be under her control. For a family-owned company, where the relationship between employees and customers plays a crucial role in sustainable growth, difficulties in maintaining client relationships could lead to serious consequences. While the revenue decline wasn't solely due to Karen, it primarily reflected her lack of work capacity and ineffective communication with clients, issues she had not addressed. One morning, as the new manager was preparing for an important meeting, Karen walked into his office with an air of confidence. However, her confidence wasn't to report on work achievements or provide useful client information. Instead, she suddenly announced that she would no longer be able to continue working at the company. This wasn't the first time she had made such a statement, but for the new manager, it was a shock. He, still inexperienced in dealing with such situations, felt a little confused when Karen said she wanted to quit, especially in the context of declining revenue. As usual, Karen showed no signs of worry or indecision. She remained calm and confident that her resignation would make the manager reconsider and possibly offer a salary increase or change her working conditions to keep her on board. For her, this was a well-tested tactic that had been effective in previous years. She believed any changes would work in her favor, especially since she thought no one in the company could easily replace her. However, this time, things weren't as easy as before, as the new manager still lacked experience and didn't fully understand the tricks Karen had been using all along. This highlighted the difference in the new manager's approach to work. Although inexperienced in handling difficult employees like Karen, he was determined to hold his ground and not be swayed by unreasonable demands. At the same time, he had to face a tough decision: should he meet Karen's request or find another way to resolve this issue to avoid setting a bad precedent for other employees? Unshaken by the tense situation Karen had created, the new manager, though inexperienced, was incredibly firm and decisive in his response. When Karen walked into the room with the bold declaration that she would be leaving, instead of panicking or trying to suit the situation like previous managers might have, he calmly and strategically responded. He didn't let emotions cloud his judgment. he simply said, in a tone that was regretful yet sincere, that he was sorry they wouldn't be able to continue working together in a professional manner. It was a gentle yet resolute statement, showing no compromise or threat, but instead clear defiance on his part. Karen's confident and authoritative expression immediately changed when she walked into the room. She was used to having her demands accepted and getting special treatment out of fear of losing her, but this time, things didn't go as expected. That confidence gradually shifted into an unclear sense of fear, leaving Karen confused and slightly anxious. She awkwardly spoke up, citing the reason that she wasn't making enough money. This was a common excuse Karen had used to apply pressure, but this time, unlike before, the manager was not persuaded. He not only listened but also agreed with Karen on the fact that she wasn't earning enough, but instead of doing anything to keep her, he simply wished her luck in her new opportunity. At that moment, he stood up, a simple but decisive gesture that clearly marked the end of the conversation. He mentioned that an official document would be needed to notify the HR department, but she could prepare it at any time during the day, with no rush. This statement not only showed minimal respect for procedure but also confirmed that he had no intention of negotiating further. Everything had to be done by the book, with no room for manipulation or tricks. Not stopping there, the manager quickly sent out a notice to all employees, praising Karen as a real asset to the department, creating a very different image from what Karen had expected. This announcement not only surprised everyone, but it also forced Karen to face a backlash when she realized she was not the only important person in the department. The manager not only acknowledged Karen's contributions but also subtly alleviated any tension that could arise from her departure, while reinforcing the staff's trust in his leadership. Finally, he organized a farewell party that afternoon in the company kitchen, inviting all employees to join. The party wasn't just a social gesture but also a way to create a friendly atmosphere, easing any discomfort the staff might have had over Karen's departure. This was a very smart strategy, not only helping to soften the employee's negative feelings about Karen leaving but also helping him strengthen his image as a wise, tactful manager who wasn't swayed by unreasonable demands. At the farewell party, the atmosphere, which was expected to be light and intimate, turned into an awkward and uncomfortable situation for Karen. She walked through the crowd as if attending her own funeral, but not just any funeral, the funeral of her career at the company she had been with for so long. The image of Karen at that moment was a stark contrast between her outward confidence and the evident confusion inside. She tried to be friendly, engaging with guests at the party, but the unease was palpable beneath her smile. Here was a woman attempting to maintain a strong image but unable to hide the sense of failure inside. The jokes and small talk around her seemed meaningless, and in her mind, endless questions echoed. How am I going to explain to my husband about quitting today? Karen, a woman who prided herself on controlling every situation, now found herself helpless, realizing that everything wasn't going according to her plan. She was used to using the quit threat tactic to force her superiors into submission, but this time, she couldn't manipulate the situation as she had before. She couldn't deny that her career at the company had ended unexpectedly and irreparably. This forced her to face a reality she hadn't imagined, the end of a chapter in her professional life, an ending she wasn't mentally prepared for. Fortunately for Karen, she was too proud to admit that everything that happened today was a failed tactic. She couldn't acknowledge her own deception, couldn't admit that she had been wrong to think everything could unfold according to her wishes. Instead, she buried her feelings of shame and tried to maintain the proud facade she had built over the years. She couldn't let anyone see her weakness or failure. That feeling might have been worse than losing her job, as it struck at her self-esteem, something she had always taken great pride in. While everyone was still enjoying the party and congratulating Karen, she couldn't even enjoy her farewell. This was not just the end of her job, but also a shock to her mindset, as she had to face a new reality that she couldn't change. And that was the price she paid for relying on overconfident and thoughtless tactics. While she may have hoped to leave the company with some compromise, such as a pay raise or new working conditions, in the end, she couldn't control the situation. And that was Karen's last day at the company, an ending that didn't go the way she expected. Afterward, the branch operated quite smoothly. It turned out she was only average, and her clients were happy to have a new representative for their accounts. A few years later, the manager was promoted, and the fake resignation tactic was now referred to as leaving to pursue other opportunities. The story of Karen and the new manager is a clear lesson in not abusing power or using threatening tactics in the workplace. Although Karen had succeeded in using the quit threat tactic to get what she wanted in the past, this time, when she encountered a firm and decisive manager, she failed. This shows that in the workplace, respect and professionalism are always the most important factors. Relying solely on manipulation and short-term calculation will never lead to lasting success. The biggest lesson here is that trying to manipulate situations or others will never bring long-term results, and sometimes, such actions backfire. Maintaining a humble attitude, respecting others, and working hard and fairly will lead to steady career growth. We can learn from the new manager's actions that leadership is not about compromising to unreasonable demands, but about the ability to stay calm, firm, and fair in every situation.